Well, hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss about measurement of DBH and the bark thickness of a tree species. Okay, so why it is needed to determine the DBH? I'll tell you what DBH means and what is the need of measuring bark thickness in tree species in agroforestry system or in general forest system. Okay. So when we are taking into consideration to our agricultural crop, if we want to study the growth rate, how we can measure that growth rate? We can measure the plant height, we can measure the branches, we can measure the leaf area, we can take destructive sample as well, because these field crops like rice, wheat, pulses, they are very short stature, not that much like bigger plants. So we can take them, and the population number of plants per unit area, that is also higher in case of our field crops. So we can take easily 1 or 2 plants and we can oven dry it, and we can measure the growth rate like CGR, RGR and all. But in case of tree species, you think when we are considering the tree species in forest or agroforestry systems, then that is very difficult task to measure the growth rate. So we can measure the volume in a live plant. We cannot just cut, and we cannot just weight that plant, or we cannot just take it in an oven and we can just take the dry weight. That is not possible in case of agroforestry system and forestry plantation. So what we need to do, we can measure the volume. To measure the volume, volume of a tree species, let's say one tree species is there and the trunk is there. So how we can measure the volume? Let's say this is the soil layer, and this is the trunk. So trees are of values with different aspect. Like we can get some product from the tree like fruit, different other aspects are there like lac and all. So but if you see, this is mostly it is used for timber purpose. Okay, so if we are commercially planting the tree species, we are mostly planting it for timber purpose, and we can sell it as wood lot. So how to measure this volume? Suppose we have planted one commercial plantation of tree species. So how we can know what is the productivity of this plantation? What is the productivity of this forest? So that is in cubic centimeter or cubic meter. Okay, the unit is cubic meter. So we can sell that in that way. So to get the volume, what we need to do? We need to measure the diameter or the area of this trunk and the length of the trunk. Okay, so area of the trunk, to get the area we need diameter, because this is a live plant. We cannot just insert something and we cannot just get the radius. Okay, we cannot just insert something out, we cannot get the radius of the tree trunk or what is called pole. But the diameter we can measure with a caliper or any measuring tape. We can measure the circumference, and by back calculation we can get the radius or diameter. Okay, so if we assume the tree species is circular, then the circumference is 2 pi r. Okay, 2 pi r or pi d or diameter. Okay, so this diameter we have to estimate. I was talking about DBH, so that is nothing but diameter at breast height. Okay, diameter at breast height. Why it is necessary? See, if I'll tell you, just take the diameter of the tree, live plant. Okay, so where you will take that diameter? You cannot just take the diameter randomly. You cannot just take the diameter at the base or at the top or 3-4 place and average it out, but there is a certain rule. Okay, so you have to take the diameter at the breast height or chest height. That is called DBH in technical term. That is called DBH or diameter at breast height. But you just see, suppose one observer who is taking the diameter, he is of 4 feet height, and one observer is 5 feet height, and another observer is 7 feet height. So their breast height is different. So how we can standardize? So it has been standardized by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, that you must take that DBH at 1.37 meter, at 1.37 meter or 4.5 feet. Okay, from the ground level, along the axis of the tree, and perpendicular, while taking the observation, you should take that tape or the caliper at perpendicular to the axis. Suppose this is the tree species. Okay, this is the tree species. So let's see, this is the tree species. So you have to first measure the 1.37 meter, that is the breast height, that is the generalized or standardized breast height. So suppose let me just clear it. Okay, let me start from the beginning. So what will be the process here? So here you want some instruments or some implements. That is, first thing is the measuring scale or measuring tape, measuring scale or tape. Then you need a caliper. You know how caliper looks. Caliper means it will measure the thickness of certain thing. In physics we use vernier caliper. Like that, we have caliper, there is a fixed arm and there is a scale and there is a movable arm attached to it. Okay, so how it happens? This is a movable arm. Okay, this is the fixed arm or this is the scale. Okay, here the graduations are there where you can record the observation. Suppose this is the trunk. So you have to place the trunk, the caliper surrounding to the trunk, and you have to tighten this caliper. Okay, this is the fixed one. You have to place it here, and this movable arm you have to adjust. And how you will adjust? Suppose this is the tree species and this is the trunk. You first need to, okay, let me just discuss the procedure first. So you have to clear if any debris is there or wood lot is there on the ground, you have to clear that. Okay, because otherwise that there will be error. Okay, if you are standing on an wood lot, then it will be error. Then you have to remove if any creeper or any small branches are there or any loose bark is there on surrounding the trunk, then you have to remove that. Okay, then you have to place the scale, and if the height of the here it is the 1.37 meter or DBH height, then at that particular point you have to make a cross mark. Okay, you have to make a cross mark. Now you have to put this vernier caliper here perpendicular to the tree axis. See, this is the tree axis. Your caliper should be placed perpendicular to the tree axis like this. Okay, so you have to adjust this caliper and you have to fix that caliper tightly attached to the tree species or trunk. Then you have to take the measurement. Okay, there in the measuring line there is, you can get the measurement. Okay, so like that you have to record that. But there are certain rules while taking DBH measurement. While taking the diameter at breast height, there are certain rules to follow, because always you cannot find the ground is smooth or it is plain and the tree is vertically oriented. You cannot find that always, every case. So there are certain rules based on that. So I am just saying, let's say this is the plain ground and this is the tree vertically arranged. Then you just simply you just put the scale parallel to the main axis of the trunk. You just put the scale, and wherever 1.37 meter, that is the DBH height, you just mark that, cross mark that, then you just place the caliper. Then you just take the observation. But in case of if the ground is, let's say ground is plain but the plant is leaned, this is the trunk, so this is leaned or it is like this with certain angle. Okay, then how to get the DBH? You cannot just take the DBH like this. No, you have to put it, always remember, you have to put it parallel to the main axis. You have to put the scale parallel to from the ground, you have to put the scale parallel to the main axis. Then wherever 1.37 meter is there, then put the caliper perpendicular to the main axis and you just record the observation. This is the rule. Okay, so this is the first rule, this is the second rule, right? You got my point? Because you cannot move here, the lean side you cannot move, the above side you can even walk over that trunk. Okay, and you can measure that. That is our second thing. Then let's say the ground is itself slopy, like hilly area, assume hilly area, and the tree is perpendicular or vertically arranged. Tree is vertically arranged. Then how to take the DBH? Then let's say you cannot take the DBH from this side, because let's say the DBH falls here. It is touching the ground level. That wood is not of no use. Okay. So the DBH in this case is measured at the uphill side. Okay, uphill side. Suppose this is the axis, you have to stand here and you have to take the 1.37 mark here. Then you have to put the caliper and you can take the measurement. Next one is, our hill is slopy and the plant is also tilted or it is perpendicular to the hill slope. Okay. So in this case as well, you have to take the DBH from the uphill side parallel to the main axis. Always remember, parallel to the main axis, and while putting the caliper, that should be perpendicular to the main axis. This is third rule, this is fourth rule. Okay. Then let's say there are some buttresses, like in case of banyan tree you can find, in case of different mangrove plantation you can find silt root or buttresses. Suppose up to some height there are some thick roots are there, above which the trunk generates. Above which the trunk generates. You can find some thick roots and here. Then what you need to do, from where the uniform trunk has been generated, you have to take the measurement from that place only. You have to take measurement from that place, from this place, from this point to 1.37 meter. Okay. Then you just cross mark, then you put the measuring tape or you just put the caliper. Okay. So this is called buttress root. This is your fifth rule. Remember, then always the trunk is not uniform. Let's say this is the ground and this is the trunk, and let's say there is a bifurcation. You can find this type of tree. Okay. There is some bifurcation. Then if the DBH, let's say this is the DBH of 1.37, if the DBH is below that bifurcation, then that should be the final DBH of, or final BH or breast height of that particular tree species. So if it is, the DBH falls below the bifurcation, then this is the DBH. Okay. Then if it is above the bifurcation, let's say this is the trunk and here is the bifurcation. Let's say the breast height falls above this. Let's say this is the breast height. Okay. So you need to record two separate observation from this. For this side of the trunk, there is a separate diameter you have to measure. For this side of the trunk, you have to measure the separate diameter along their axis. Why? Because in this case, if the bifurcation is below the DBH, in that case you cannot sell the tree as a whole, but you have to break that in this way. You have to cut this separate. Again, you have to cut this branch and this trunk separately. You cannot sell it as a whole because that is a bifurcation. Okay. So you have to cut this from this and all. So three parts will be there and three different parts will be sold differently or will be calculated differently. Okay. So this is the rule for when the bifurcation is below the DBH. Okay. Next one is, let's say okay, this is your trunk and at the DBH point there is a swelling. At the DBH point, so the trunk is uniform, but here let's say the DBH falls here and there is a swelling. Okay. In this case, what you need to do, suppose this is the DBH point, you according to your scale of what you need to do, you need to choose the place of the uniform trunk size at least distance, whether it is top side or whether it is bottom side. That is first thing. You need to choose the uniform trunk where it falls at the nearest distance, then that at that place you can take your DBH. Otherwise, what you need to do, you just measure same distance from both sides and you take the DBH and you just mean it or average it out. Okay, suppose this is the DBH 1, this is DBH 2, and you have to DBH 1 plus DBH 2 divided by 2. That will be your DBH. Clear? So this is another rule. When the trunk is not uniform, like there is some protrude is there. Next thing is, in all these cases we assume that the trunk is circular in nature. But if the trunk is like elliptical shape, then what you need to do? You need to place your caliper once in this direction. So suppose that is DBH 1, then you just come to this direction. You just put your caliper in this direction. Then that is DBH 2, and you have to average DBH 1 plus DBH 2 divided by 2. That will be the final DBH of that trunk. Okay. In this case, so these are certain rules of DBH measurement you have to follow while measuring the DBH. See, caliper can be used when the trunk is like narrow or thin up to 1 meter or 1.5 meter diameter. But if the tree trunk is beyond that, then you have to put that measuring tape surrounding to that main axis and that perpendicular to the main axis. You have to take the tape. Okay. And while putting the caliper, you have to you cannot lean that caliper or you can tilt that caliper. That should be perpendicular to the main axis of the trunk, not parallel to the ground. That should be perpendicular to the main axis. Okay. So these things you have to keep in mind. Next, coming to bark thickness. Suppose DBH are of two types, or while we measure the DBH or while we record the DBH, that is of two type. Let's say this is your outer bark, and let's say this is your inner bark or the actual wood. Okay, the actual wood, and this is the thickness of the bark. Okay, there is one wood, actual wood is there, and there is outer bark, loosened outer bark is there, right? So this outer bark is of no significance in case of commercial uses. You can use that bark for your fuel purpose. If any bark is of any tree is of medicinal importance, then their bark can be used. But for commercial purpose, for selling purpose of the wood, this bark is of no use. Okay, so this thickness we have to eliminate while considering the volume of that particular trunk, right? So one is called one is called DBH inside the bark, inside bark. Another one is called DBH outside bark. Okay, so this is represented as DIB and this is represented as DOB. DBH inside the bark and DBH outside the bark. So DIB is more important from our consideration. So to find out the DIB, DBH inside bark, what we can do, DBH outside the bark or DOB minus 2 into bark thickness. Okay, DBH inside the bark, that means this DBH is equal to total DBH minus 2 into, because both side you can find the bark, so 2 into bark thickness. Now coming to how we can find this bark thickness. For that we have one instrument that is called Swedish bark gauge. Swedish bark gauge, that is one instrument you can find like this, and here is a pointed structure. Okay, so here some measurement scale you can find, and here it is a pointed structure. So what you need to do, suppose this is the bar, this is the tree, you measure the DBH at this point and you have put in the cross mark, then along the cross mark, suppose this is your DBH, the circumference. So along the cross mark you have to put that Swedish bark gauge for measurement at 4-5 different places along the cross mark. Okay, surrounding to the trunk you can put that Swedish bark gauge at 4-5 point. So there is a pointed structure attached to that Swedish bark gauge. When we pressurize that Swedish bargos along the stem or the trunk, then that pointed structure that will move along the bark, and it will be restricted at the hardwood present inside the bark. Okay, surrounding to the nearer the inside part of the bark, there is a hard structure or hardwood is present. So after certain point, after entering through the bark, actual bark, it will restrict there through by the resistance of that hardwood. Okay, then you can pull that Swedish bargos and you can see the what is the thickness by either manually putting the scale inside that hard structure, or there is already scale is there up to what extent that hard part is being inserted inside the trunk or inside the bark, that is already measured. So in this way you can measure or you can record the bark thickness. Are you clear why bark thickness measurement is important, why the DBH is important? Okay, so it is mostly used in commercial structure, or if we want to know what is the tree volume in this forest area, or what is the volume of the tree in this commercial plantation, you need to follow these things. And we have already discussed different rules of measuring DBH, that is also important. And yes, these are coming on in different competitive exams, so you can prepare accordingly. And you can, if you have any doubt in regarding any part of the any section or any concept in agriculture, then you can comment or you can let me know so that I can prepare a lecture over it. See you in the next lecture. Till then, have a great day.